Peace, 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 everybody. Hope y'all can hear me loud and clear. It's your brother Obafemi Kinsier Delele with Team RBG. And we back again for another segment of our Black State of Emergency series. So this is with the Team RBG Agriculture and Holistic Health Committee. Um, my the rest of the crew should be joining us here shortly, and we got a couple special guests coming on today, and so yeah, we just gearing up to get things moving, and so yeah, this is our third installment of our Black State of Emergency series from Team RBG, and uh, Acton, you can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So yeah, this would be our third. This would be our third roundtable discussion. The first one we had, the first discussion that we had was dealing with food shortages and emergency preparedness. Uh, so we do one a month. Last month we did cultivating the mind, harvesting the mission, Black mental health and agriculture. And today's topic we're dealing with is toxic landscapes, tonic solutions. So navigating environmental racism through holistic health. And so I got two special guests on. They're not strangers when it comes to this particular subject matter. I'm gonna allow them space to introduce themselves. Uh, if Mama Ayo is, can you hear me, Mama Ayo? You on mute? You on mute?
Greetings, free the land.
Free the land, free the land. We can hear you. All right, all right. Glad y'all can make it in. So we'll start off with Mama Ayo. Can you introduce yourself for those who may not know who you are, and just tell us a little bit about your background and what brings you to the table?
I just been kind of a traveler. I'm a mother, a grandmother. My greatest accomplishments, of course. My family and I lived in Africa for a time, about 13 years, and was able to see how you just throw something in the ground and it grows, and how that doesn't look the same over here. And then coming back and being involved with just healing. I'm an educator. I was an educator in the school system for about 14 years here once I got back to the U.S. K through 8. My forte, of course, is African, African centered language, arts, and writing. That's what I love, to teach. But after retiring, I think I got a little bit more into, healing and wellness. And I had some beautiful examples around me here in Memphis. And I got my certification in Yoni Steam Wellness, um, by, of course, level 3 Reiki with crystals. And then just by traveling outside of the country, looking at different herbs and spices to help healing. So we've been on this journey with a lot of healers, just a lot of healers. And fortunately, we work within the Ministry of Health and Society within the Republic of New Africa. So I think that's pretty, you know, succinct. There's a whole bunch of stories in there, but that's succinct.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We are welcome to have you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So my brother Adam Bridges, can you introduce yourself, my brother?
Absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, indeed.
Apologies. I was trying to get on a little bit earlier to do a mic cam check. Hey y'all, free the land, saluted.
Free the land.
I see some outlaw RBG comrades on the line. Y'all. Atten, I've been around. I don't show my face online a lot, but you probably know somebody that know me. Right now, I'm a program officer uh, with Above Systems, and we are a community-centric real estate development firm that basically just covers everything. We're going to eventually branch off into construction as well. But basically, long story short, we really look at New African Ujamaa as one of the most practical uh, frameworks that is available for us to organize around to build an economy. And I think that that should be the number one focus that we're engaging in right now as a people, is to really focus on what we need to do to actually rebuild our economy, especially seeing as we are literally the seeds of all of this economic power that this colony currently has, and we need to be thinking about how we do that for ourselves. And I think that the best way to create healthy environments is to control our environments, from the rooter to the tutor, as we say in the backwoods of North Carolina. But yeah, so long road. I actually started out on this road with Taoism, studying that Chinese art, studying uh, herbology from the Chinese sciences or whatnot, and then gradually, as I began to learn myself, got exposed to actually Queen of Four, Queen of Four, Dr. Layla O Africa, all that old school health and wellness uh, 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 religion, as I like to say, or systems of order or whatnot. Down here in Jackson, Mississippi, currently. Previously, I was in Atlanta for probably, I don't know, 10, 14 years or whatnot. I was one of the first pretty active in both the urban agriculture movement down there, as well as the tech ecosystem down there. One of the first I was in that one, yeah, an alumni of that first Habishah Works program or whatnot. Yeah, so super passionate about agriculture and currently pursuing, as well as normal economic things, but currently pursuing my permaculture design certification from Oregon State University or whatnot.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you sharing that, brother. Um, I got my brother Obawajumi.
All
You hear me?
right. Yes, sir. I can hear you loud and clear.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. All right. Now, uh, BB48 race first. Pleasure being with you all this afternoon or this evening. And a pleasure to have our guest on as well.
All right. So listen, I ain't gonna waste no time, y'all. We here to have some discussion centered around this toxic landscapes and tonic
Mm-hmm.
solutions. So navigating environmental racism through holistic health. So I guess I'll start by saying, how do we define um, toxic landscapes beyond just pollution? Like, we talk about food deserts, predatory marketing in our environment. But how do we define what a toxic landscape really is to get our people to understand that better? And that's what either one of you.
Okay, well, we'll be quite blunt. We look around the community, and do we see more initiatives where there are gardens, or we see pollution? We
Mm-hmm.
see those types of things that don't lift us up, but kind of keep us kind of low on a lower vibrational level, because no matter where we are as a melanated people, or creative people, we make magic. And so when you don't see that in the community, that means there's been um, I think, in my opinion, that there are other issues that keep the people distracted from making sure that their environment is better, is safe, is creative, is loving, and ultimately, that's going to be seen through community gardens, certain properties that, for me, we're at war. We've been at war a very, very long time. So uh, these are the ways in which resistance, where you talk about our people going to resist and, of course, do better. So when you talk about toxic environments, yeah, why isn't the city helping the people who built uh, most of these cities refurbish their homes, uh, keep away the dilapidation? Why aren't there programs to help renovate and make sure the elders keep their homes so they can pass it on as generational wealth? To me, those are the toxic types of
Mm.
things that are hitting us every day. And I yield for Brother Alton to build upon.
Yeah, so I will dovetail on what Mama said. I think that when we I, I love to root in the history. You know what I'm saying? Because when you root in the history, then there's not a whole lot of room for opinion or debate. Um, I think this entire colonial enterprise
Did
is
you hear?
toxic.
You able to hear me?
Yeah, you're breaking up
Uh,
just a little bit, Mama Ayo. I heard you. Can y'all hear me? Of whom can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, okay. Um, yeah, you got a little bit of robot going on, Mama Ayo, but we still hear you. Um, so what I would say is that this entire they've poisoned this entire land. You know what I'm saying? And when you look at a lot of the behaviors that we're seeing now, um, from a geopolitical standpoint, they're demonstrating an inability to provide any sort of leadership moving forward at a species level, and they realize that they don't really and I hate to turn it into an indictment, but it kind of is what it is. So what that means is we're going to have to look at large scale projects where we begin to look at what does it take to heal the totality of the environment. uh that includes the relationship that we have with, I think, primarily each other. um it includes the relationship that we have with the land. It includes the governance processes that we engage in with each other and with the land or whatnot. And it also includes the economics very, very heavily. You know what I'm saying? There's this myth that all economic activity is capitalist in nature. Capitalism is only 500 years old, and we've been engaging in economic activity ever since Unga Bunga shared some spearheads with Ooga Booga for some dried fish. So long, 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 long time we've been engaging in equitable uh, 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 economic activity or whatnot. But again, that's when we have to lean on New African Ujamaa. We have to lean on what type of social systems we have to create with each other, as far as cooperatives and networks of cooperatives and federations of cooperatives, to become, a dominant voice in creating the systems that not only create prosperity and abundance, but have a principal and primary role in actually healing the land and our relationships with the land. And I think that's super critical going forward, especially as all of these technologies begin to manifest within this so-called fourth industrial revolution, where yes, these things are now becoming easier, they are becoming accessible, but it's going to require some technical literacy as well. So I think that the whole environment is toxic. So now we have to look at how do we regenerate the entirety of the whole project, everything. You know what I'm saying? And really carry that forward, on a global basis. As far as like just the amount of trash, for instance, that's in the ocean, right? It's just we just have to take a larger role in actually stewarding the environments that we exist in. Check.
Yeah, you know, one of the things you mentioned was you talked about the relationship that we have amongst ourselves. Is one of the primary things we have to work on. When we start talking about toxic environments, because that toxic environment manifests inside of us, and so that relationship that we have with one another shows up on the outside environment. You know what I'm saying? So you said, you know, healing the relationship we have with ourselves and each other, and then healing the relationship that we have towards the land. Um, and I know Mama Ayo spoke about, you know, the community gardens. Um, what do you think, or you know, I've seen you talk about the process of us going, you know, developing the community gardens and then going above that level of community-based agriculture into I would say more so developing a system of agriculture for us. Um, what do you think it looks like for us to, when we live in these neglected spaces? How does that show up as physical illness, mental illness that you see in our community?
Are you addressing that question to me, brother? Can you hear
Yes,
me?
yes.
Yes, my
It
apologies.
I
doesn't
can hear you
matter.
now. Yes.
Yeah, it
Okay,
doesn't matter.
okay, beautiful. Um, you know, as Brother Alton says, we have our hearts are broken as African people. We have epigenetic issues. You know, he's talking real plain relationship with self, with each other, with our children. That's the biggest tragedy, in my opinion, because we don't speak love over them enough. We speak a little love. We know we love them. They are our assets, but we don't speak love to them. And so all of these relationships have to do with the hurt and harm that you carry. Your ancestral pain is relevant. Not and the pain that you've gone through this lifetime. And I'm saying that to brothers and sisters because we have to do that work. If we're going to build a nation, if we're going to build a better world, and we are going to allow the degradation and all the hurt that they put on us to color us, to keep us from healing so that we can produce, because we have geniuses waiting on us to activate. And so we have to be intentional. We got to do that work. We got to know when we've taken on white man's ways, and is it productive? Is it helping us? Is it helping us love each other better, to look at each other with our highest hearts, to be of high moral character? I think that's all part of it, and we all have to do our work. We have to go into the forest. We have to ground ourselves. We have to heal every day, because they, unfortunately and fortunately, we're in this technological world where the internet is very, very pervasive. But I bear witness to you that we're also being subliminally manipulated. So be careful. I was part of those experiments in the 70s. So every little piece of information, make sure we're using our highest melanated minds um, to discern what's harmful, helpful, because we have that ability. So when the brother spoke of all those things, plenty of work to do, because we've been in venues where stuff breaks down. Jealousy, envy, greed, what do we call it? Gossip. You want to get with somebody, and it breaks everything down, and we have so much more love to give to each other, and we can't get there because we don't love ourselves. We got to do that work. Got to do that work. I yield.
So absolutely concur with everything Mama said. Um, the greatest battle that you have to fight is the battle inside your mind. And when I look around, I see so many people that have, on an exterior basis, they might say they super black this, super black that, super black the third, but on the internal basis, they've been defeated. They've been defeated. Um, and let's be very, we got to be very clear about, you know, what the system of colonization does. You know, a colony can't exist unless the indigenous people and the people that's imported as labor are defeated, right? So there's a certain level of mental development that people have to engage in, so you can look around and understand the potential power that we have, right? Based on the precedent of our past power, right? So Sankofa, you know what I'm saying? We got to go back and get it. We got to root ourselves into history, right? So I absolutely concur with everything that Mama said, because that's what's going to be required for us to sit down with each other and plan and engage in, you know, tactical, operational, and strategic planning. Uh, it's going to take healed people to be able to sit down and really think, you know, short term, intermediate term, and long term. You know, Dr. Amos Wilson said that, you know, one of the true test of like an adult is the ability to sit down with other adults and have and engage in these thoughtful conversations about crafting the future. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't, if you can't sit down with peers, then and talk about how you're going to position yourself in the next 1 year, I mean the next quarter, the next month, never mind the next year, 5 year, 10 years, or whatnot, right? Because that's the foundation of building cooperatives. That's the foundation of building consumer cooperatives. That's the foundation of building worker cooperatives. That's the foundation of building the industrial cooperatives. That's the foundation that we're going to have in order to take these community gardens, all of this experience that we're getting from urban agriculture and community gardens, and then actually converting that into purchasing real farms that are, you know, producing food that are able to feed anybody that wants access to that food, right? We have to heal ourselves to the point where we can operate within organizations that are able to function economically, right? And again, like Mama was saying, what the majority of things that keep us from moving forward are emotions. You know what I'm saying? Jealousy, ego, lust is another big one. All of these things, right? Because for whatever reason, you know what I'm saying, we're not doing the necessary work on ourselves to be able to mitigate the traumas that not only we're experiencing, right? But as also, as Mama said, at that epigenetic level, right? And if folks don't understand that term, I would really advise you to look it up. It's real science. EPI genetics. And what it talks about is how, even in relatively normal contemporary history, right, things that your ancestors experienced are manifesting in your genetic code today. Like, there are markers in the Irish people today that they still have from their ancestors that had to endure the English potato famine, right? Because it wasn't an Irish potato; it was the English took all the potatoes, right? But I think that those are the basic things that we need to do, and then from there we'll be able to scale. That's our biggest problem. We have so much genius right now. We have so many people who are putting in the work. Okay, we have such a strong and powerful foundation. But now what we have to do now we have to scale these solutions. We have to scale these ideas. We have to demonstrate to these black folks with capital, that, hey, these are projects you can actually invest in and get a return on, right? And that also lays the foundation for us to begin to pool our capital together. And now we can begin to build an actual economy, right? We can begin to build an actual agricultural system, right, that mimics the one we built for them, that put them in this position of being a superpower in a couple hundred years, right, from a backwater colony. These are the things we have to be thinking about. Check.
Go ahead, Baba Obawajumi. You want to chime in? You on mute, brother.
No, I was just taking it all in with what Baba was saying. You know, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in because these are like some of the conversations I often have in terms of the connection between agriculture and the mind state, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual foundation of our people in terms of mental health. And so I'm just really fascinated by it. So, I mean, I'm gonna, chime in a bit, try to get these questions together so that I can add on to the dialogue.
No doubt, no doubt. So, I know Mama Ayo mentioned some of the covert and subtle ways that our land, our wealth has been taken advantage of. What are some of those ways that the average person may not notice in their daily lives? What are some of those covert ways that our land and health are taken advantage of that the average person they may not be paying attention to it, but it's happened to us day in, day out.
Thank you for that, and because I want people to still to be aware that there's still chemtrails going on in the environment. We now have the issue with Elon Musk here in Memphis, and health is being affected, air quality, and ultimately the water in which we drink is being affected. Not just us. Make no mistake, it's closer to the black community because they always dump these things on us first. But it's going to affect them white folks because the wind is taking it far, far, far. So all of these plants that are coming up is something that we have to ring the bell. Why you keep getting sick? Why your kids going to have asthma problems? What's happening to the air around you? You'll be more involved? Like, test your water, make sure it's okay. Maybe you have to filter. We have to be, for me, educating, but also understanding that honestly, y'all, Memphis has been dumping grounds since before World War II. We got bunkers of toxic waste. There are browns fields from the Firestone plant that people had their livelihood. So some of the places, the industrial places, are cesspools of waste. How are we going to revitalize them? Is the question, and people trying to find jobs. So we have to have a core. I'm just saying, trying to make sure they're making it. So there has to be almost a core group, or at least an initiative to make sure we keep alert. The biggest thing is alert, because you got to know your law. You got to know who's for us and who's against us in your city councils. Because at this particular time, if we are particularly black predominantly, and I'm talking about this, based on Mario Bedelli's Malcolm X doctrine, you seize your territory, make sure you have people of good heart, good intentions that are going to work with you and work for you and help you rebuild, because it's your money, it's our money. It's our tax money and initiatives that are going out to these white folks, these people who have put us under yokes, have to be turned around, particularly if we're the majority. I mean, that we got to do it. It's no longer, you just waiting for this, waiting for that. We got to get governors in, what we call mayors and county representatives who are of good heart and understand the mission, because if you betray your people, there's going to be consequences. I mean, I'm just saying, have the conversation. Because those are the things that the Nguzo Saba is teaching us. You talk about Ujima. Ujima is our economic strategy to build our communities the way we want, with the type of solar system or wind or whatever kind of housing, the way we want it. We're gonna have to do a lot of rebuilding on the land, because these people have literally poisoned the land, poisoned the water, attempting to poison our air. So we got some beautiful children in the universities. They have to say, how would you rebuild this world if we're seizing the 5 states in the South, if we decide that Arkansas is part of this initiative, Memphis, whatever, wherever we are, we got to seize what we call that political and economic power, and it's going to take a lot of us on many levels. And as the brother's saying, we can't do it until we do that self-work, because we always have the betrayers. We always have the ones that are going to fall out of fear. We always have the one that's going to take them bribes. That's self-work. That's, how you say, I will give my life if that is necessary. My time, my mind, my strength, and my wealth, because it is necessary. Those are the kind of people we want. Life-giving people. Because our children are depending on us. The women are here as the second line of defense when they've been the first line of defense. All of those dynamics have to be readjusted, and we got to shake off some ways. You don't think we got some dirty ways from these Caucasoid people? I bear witness we do. We are their children. They know us. They've been manipulating us a long time. So when you get that spark of liberation and resistance, and this ain't right, just from a human right point of view. It ain't right. It ain't just. You don't have to do nothing with color right now. You're out of order according to humanity's laws. You're out of order. So what we gonna do? If we spiritually, emotionally, and all of these things say, as a people, as a race, as a community, as the Pan-African community, and everybody's saying it, you are out of order. What does that look like politically? So I yield.
Yeah. So just to dovetail on that, I think, to me, one of the principal way in which they stole land, in which we've lost land, was establishing the conditions of the Great Migrations.
I was very deep.
Uh, if you look at how our population was structured right after the Civil War, like for instance, Mississippi was majority black. You know what I'm saying? And all throughout the deep South, we've had, substantial population centers in those states, and they recognize that, right? Like let's be crystal clear here. They're aware of what their environment is like, and a lot of times we think that other people think like we do, and it's like, no, other people, they take a little bit more responsibility to make sure they control their environment than we do, and we have to get back to that or whatnot. But yeah, successive population flows out of the state, taking advantage of the economic booms during these global wars, World War One, World War Two, thereby diminishing the population in particular counties right? And then therefore, allowing um, um, domestic terror pressure to be applied, to individual farms and individual organizers. Prime example, Mr. Vernon Dahmer, major community pillar in Mississippi, down there by Hattiesburg, Big Creole Farm. He hosted some Freedom Riders, and he hosted some SNCC folks, and they came down and helped folks organize to vote, and then the Klan burned down his house, and luckily he was able to get all the children out or whatnot. But he died from his wounds because he was an economic pillar again. And what was his foundation? His foundation was agriculture, right? They had that farm, and then they was able to leverage that farmland into multiple little enterprises where they were becoming not only a moral pillar of the community, but an economic pillar of the community or whatnot. And they did this, the Klan did this, while his sons were active duty in the military. I think they was represented in pretty much every branch of the military. You can look up photos of them coming home and looking at the burned home, and they're in their uniforms or whatnot. So that's the macro level. You know what I'm saying? Promoting these initiatives that got us out of the South, right, and into all these other locations. Then on the macro level, we still have this issue with heirs property. When I got serious and started looking at, how much land do we have, the number I came up with about 2005 or so is about 8 million acres. Now, if you look at the numbers now, it's closer to 5 or whatnot. So we're still losing a lot of land, and a lot of that is because heirs property. You know what I'm saying? Families don't have the capacity to sit down with each other and plan a succession, right? So if you can't plan succession in your family, how are you going to plan succession in a community cooperative that's doing millions of dollars in revenue, right? These are the type of things that we have to think about, right? Because we have blocks where older people don't want to listen to younger people. You know what I'm saying? Despite that fact that the younger people, they might be closer to what's happening with technology. They might be closer to what's happening with actual market demand, right? But again, these are all of this trauma left over from our enslavement, right? One of the things I like to say is we are ego starved, right? And we were ego starved so long. That's what drives so much of our behavior right now. We have to go out. We gotta be seen. We gotta be seen as being in charge, and nobody can challenge our leadership, and nobody with more expertise can't contribute, to the problem because they not in charge. I'm the HNIC. Like these are critical things, and this is how we keep losing. You understand what I'm saying? This is how the land continues to get lost. I've had personal experiences working on farms, trying to help farmers. Hey, this is what the trends are right now. Everybody's moving to subscription-based models, and they're able to generate regular revenue to stabilize their operations. They didn't want to listen. They didn't want to listen because what? They were infected by the sickness that, because capitalism had granted them access and ownership, quote unquote, of land, they didn't have to listen to somebody that didn't have land. You understand what I'm saying? And this is one of the main little things that we have in our head that really keep us from moving forward as a people. We have people out there with solid expertise, but people with assets don't want to listen because this idea that having more makes them a leader or something, right? But we're continuously losing our base of assets or whatnot. Another primary example, people, I just seen an issue. You got this issue up in New York City where somehow these folks of And it seems to me like they all seem to be of a particular community. It seems like they all seem to be Jews. That's the only articles that I'm seeing. And somehow they are purchasing shares in long owned black properties, and then they're forcing those people out of those properties and then reselling those properties at the market value, because a lot of these properties, when you hold, if you look at a dense populated city like New York City and you hold a piece of property for a while, that property is going to continue to go up. It's going to appreciate in value, right? And the same thing, the same dynamic is happening with rural land. You know, you get behind on them tax payments, hey, they're gonna somebody's gonna come in, they're gonna pay those taxes, or somebody's gonna come in and they're gonna take control of that lien, right? Or somebody's gonna come in and they're gonna take control of that debt note, and then they're gonna foreclose, right? They're gonna foreclose to get you out of that property to do whatever it is they're gonna do, right? And a lot of farmland is being lost so that housing can be put on there. You know what I'm saying? Right. And a lot of times it's like, again, you can't even sit down with your children to develop a succession plan, right? You can't even sit down. Now, I will say this as well. A lot of it also, because I want to make sure I'm clear here. A lot of it also is having the necessary sophistication in understanding, well, what type of entity do you need to have a succession plan, right? And a lot of the things we do, we don't have it in corporate entities, right? We don't have it in trust structure. I read something so crazy yesterday, not yesterday, but a couple of weeks ago, and it's bouncing around in my head. I'm trying to dig into it, and I'm trying to understand, like, is this true or not? But they said that if you look at from Emancipation Proclamation to now, and you look at all the different like civil rights bills that they've had, they said that it's not it's not white women that's been, of course it's not us that's the primary beneficiary of civil rights legislation. It's not even white women that's been the primary beneficiary of civil rights legislation. It's been corporations that's been the primary beneficiaries of civil rights legislation, right? Because, you know, a corporation is a person. A corporation has rights. That's what that Citizens United case was all about. Whether or not a corporation has the right to contribute to a political campaign. And the Supreme Court said, yes, it does, right? So what does that tell you about the primacy of corporate citizens, right? Even over normal, everyday people of colonizer descent, white people. Mama Ayo already brought up that, you know, these data centers are affecting well-to-do white people in their little suburban enclaves or whatnot. You know, this issue with I'm in tech, so, you know, this data center issue is nothing new to me. But I remember years ago, there was a facility in, I want to say Forsyth County, Georgia, somewhere out there in the suburbs around Atlanta. And white people in their nice little suburban neighborhoods turning on their faucet, brown water coming out. Okay. Why? Because that corporation imposed its right to establish a facility there. And those folk, regular citizens, I mean, the way this thing is right now, y'all, citizens really don't have a whole lot of say right now. You know what I'm saying? It's these corporate entities that have all the say. And a lot of the people that we're seeing, billionaire this, billionaire that, billionaire the third, even them as individuals don't have the power. It's the corporate boards, right, that they are subservient to, that have the power. They're the ones that's controlling that corporate entity, especially if they decide to go, especially if they're a public company. You know what I'm saying? Where their shares are owned by, it's listed on the stock exchange, and it's owned by all these different investors and entities with capital or whatnot, right? So who understands all that? I'm just learning now all of this, right? You know what I'm saying? So as far as like the mechanics of how you put a piece of farmland into a LLC, and then you put that LLC into a trust, irrevocable trust or a living trust, man, this is rich people stuff. This is stuff outside of our pay grade. You know what I'm saying? So those of us who are learning that, we're going to have to develop the capability to educate people on how do you do this at a practical level in order to protect yourself, right? In order to protect your in order to protect your home. You know what I'm saying? Like you got this case right now, what's her name? Fawn Weaver. Fawn. Is that her name? I think her name is Fawn or Don. Uncle Nearest Whiskey. You know what I'm saying? Had this weird CTO. Their numbers was real funny. Farm credit union. No, what is it? It's ag. What is it? Farm. Yeah, I think it's farm credit. Farm credit union, who they were basically going to get all their business loans or whatnot. Basically said, y'all, hey, they defaulted on the loan. We want to take it out. You know what I'm saying? We want to take it out through the courts or whatnot. But a lot of that, if you like, I would suggest people actually, I think that's a good starting point for understanding like how well you have to have your stuff structured. Look into this Uncle Nearest case because there's a lot of local Kentucky papers that are really going into the details, and they're talking about, you know, some of the things that could be construed as mistakes. But it's like we also have to raise our level of economic sophistication. We got to understand the mechanics of the system that we're in. And sometimes we want to be dismissive, right? But when you're dismissive of something that's preying on you, you're never going to be able to mount an effective defense against it, right? So yeah, on one hand, it's we don't know how to sit down with each other and plan for the future. But on the other hand, the things that we need to know how to do are so sophisticated and so advanced that the folks who've been doing it, right? This talented tenth or these brulees or these whatever you want to call them, haven't really done a good job in educating us on how really the real world of economics actually work. So there's a number of things that we have to mitigate here. But again, that's just information, right? And once you have that information, they really can't, what they're going to do. What they're going to do without saying our whole system is bullcrap. And if they say that their whole system is bullcrap, well, baby, rule of law is the only thing that's really saving you right now. So if they ain't no rule of law, it's the law of the jungle. If it's the law of the jungle, I mean, I don't think anybody want to go back to what their Shantae were doing to them boys. You know what I'm saying? They was
You're on
they
mute,
was
brother.
oh my God.
I can't hear you.
I yield up, female. I think I said all I need to say.
Okay. Appreciate that. Appreciate that, Baba. Definitely. I'm just so fascinated by everything that's being shared. Agriculture, holistic health, and just dealing with the fact that a lot of the subject matter is very, very new to me. I'm a novice, so I learn, from yourself, and I learn from others, even Baba Obafemi, learning about, how this whole thing works. I wanted to pose a question to both of you as our guests. What are the traditional or old world holistic practices that are specifically designed to combat environmental stressors, and how can we modernize them in the year 2026? Anybody can take it. It doesn't matter.
Mama, you want to go first?
I would say, of course, some of the things that we would have to do practically. We're talking about practically right now because you're talking about to combat some of the You are in the midst of a whole bunch of concrete jungles. When you talk about urban communities, the way the urban cities are set up versus rural, you have to, in my opinion, you have to set up more earth friendly apparatuses. And it still means maybe you do like other cultures. You might have to put a windmill. You may have to gather your rainwater. When you talk about these stressors, what are we talking about? Are we getting out ready to build our own bridges? Are we getting ready to restructure our communities that also enhance or incorporate sacred geometry? We certainly have the capability. Do we have the resources? Our dear brother Atom was talking about heirs properties. Um, when you have tracts of land, you have to look. For me, you have to ask your your people. You know, there are trees on the land. There are certain structures we may want to put on the land. Have we looked under the soil to see if there's some mineral deposits that would enhance the entire family? Because we're talking about cooperative economics. So trees are lucrative business. Some of that lumber can be put back into creating camping grounds for our youth and elders, and having retreats so that we can do some of the detoxing. So for me, those are the kind of practical applications that I would put into place, except natural stresses. Right now, we're honestly, do when you look around, is this the kind of world that you want? Is this the heaven? Is it supposed to look like this from your new African melanated mindset? Is this how we want communities to look? Highways need to be improved, landscaping, all of those things have to be taken into consideration. And you have to start, I guess, with your own communities. Do we want, for every house on the block, 5 houses are closed up, dilapidated, falling apart? Or are we trying to get initiatives where to combat some of this, what you call stressors on the earth, that we're renovating our houses and we have the money to do them and we have the resources? Because this system ain't giving it to us. We got to figure out some strategic ways that one by one we create a new African version of Habitat for Humanity. Because I don't know about y'all, but I don't see too many Black folks getting new houses. So who's going to give us new houses? Who's going to go in? As we have to do it ourselves. And we got to figure out creative ways to get it done, one house at a time, one family at a time. So um, with that, I yield.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Mama Ayo, can you hear me? Okay. Obafemi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think her connection popped off.
Okay. Because she was saying she couldn't hear me earlier. Um, I think about classical West Africa a lot, you know. And I think that, we need to invest a lot of time in, for instance, reading the works of Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop, when he's talking about the structure of African society, different African societies. When we talk about man, that's amazing. That's amazing when Mama Ayo brought up the sacred geometry, because a lot of West African villages were laid out in a fractal pattern. You know what I'm saying? Which is a crazy fundamental African mathematical principle or whatnot. So I think that Sankofa is how we have to go back, and we have to understand how we not only survive but thrive on the continent. Because I don't know about y'all, but I grew up watching like a lot of nature shows. Hey man, Africa tough as a continent, bro. Africa's tough, man. Like the carnivores will eat you. The herbivores they'll mess you up. All types of venomous snakes, sleeping sickness, malaria. You understand what I'm saying? Army ants. But we thrived in that environment, right? And no other culture on any continent has had the amount of environmental pressures that we had to endure on the continent. You know what I'm saying? In order to build what we built historically, using not just our hard technologies, but our soft technologies, our social technologies, okay, communication skills, being able to pass stories around. But when you look at that, one of the things you look at is that there is no example of any I don't think any culture on the continent that was not intimately integrated with their environments, right? They understood the seasonal cycles. They understood what they needed to know about planting food, growing food, taking advantage of, for instance, the flooding of rivers, right? Understanding what foods were healing foods, what leaves were bitter leaves and could flush out your system of parasites. What plants could be used as poultices and all of that stuff. And now we're not in that environment, right? But we still have the same frameworks in our head. So we have to really learn from our brothers and sisters, our First Nation brothers and sisters over here. What are the herbs that we need to be learning? And we have been doing that when you look into the traditions like hoodoo and things like that, right? So we have to look very closely at how we were able to thrive in West Africa, and what are those same models that we can bring over here. To Mama's point, when she was talking about, a Habitat for Humanity model, there was a video I used to share that showed a whole village coming and building a newly wedded family, building them a house. And everybody has certain skill sets to build that house. You had your masons who would oversee the making of the bricks, right? You had women coming in and dumping water and dumping mud and even dumping the carbonate into the bricks because they use that as a stabilizer. Everybody contributed to laying the bricks out, and building the house up, then they would make their plaster, and then they would rub their plaster all over using earth building techniques, and then they would decorate it for the family. That's literally Habitat for Humanity before it was Habitat for Humanity, right? But now we have to figure out, how do we recreate these systems for ourselves within the current economic environment, within these constraints that we have, because they're only constraints because we haven't figured out how to overcome them. And one thing about us as a people, if we decide that something is a problem, it's not going to be a problem for too much more longer. So it's really just a matter of saying, hey, this is a problem, and then engaging in a problem solving methodology, right, to overcome these specific problems. But I think that I think it's all about Sankofa. The answer of the question is Sankofa. We got to look back and figure out what we were doing then that we aren't doing now. And I think that even when you start to get to advanced problems, advanced logistic systems, advanced technologies, communications, devices, all that stuff, if we look at restoring our cultural foundation with Sankofa, as far as what they were able to do in their environment, then that would give us a foundation to begin to think about some of these newer concepts and some of these newer technologies, some of these newer industries that have manifested in this current day and age. It's merely a matter of reestablishing our foundation so we can apply those same frameworks to what's happening around us today. That would be my answer.
So I just listening to both of
Thank you for that, Baba. No, I was just saying thank you for that, Baba. That's all. Thank you, Madasi.
Kribu.
Yeah, so I was just listening to both of y'all responses. It just made me think about one of the examples that I've been looking into with brother the work that the brother Kashawn Myers is doing in Ghana with the Kashi village. It's it's based on sustainability. Um, you know, we want to call it ecotourism, but it's a healing center and a training center all in one. As just an example of the type of work that we have to do. I've been looking into, there are certain types of mushroom that can be grown that deals with like physical, some of the physical pollution that we see in our communities. You know what I'm saying? That it could eat up some of this waste. You know what I'm saying? So we're talking about tapping into that wellspring of our culture that's already there. Nature is our teacher. And so when we look into the natural world, our answers is there. That's what Brother Adam was saying, like that we gotta go saying Kofa. The answers is already there. We just got to remember, we got to put them parts back together to see how this will work for us today. Not just today though, for future generations. How is this going to look 20 years, 50 years from now, 100 years from now? We got to start thinking more long term in our planning and our analysis of what's going on. If we really want to build sustainable systems, right? Not sustainable, it'll last for the weekend or for this year, but we talking about down the road. So I just wanted to throw that in there. I had another question. We kind of closing in
Brother
on our time.
Obafemi, can I interject one quick thing?
Yes, indeed. Go ahead.
If we really go back to what Mama Ayo and myself is saying, this system is so sick, we can't sustain it. We have to actively heal it. We have to actively regenerate, right? The biosphere, right? So we have to start looking beyond sustainability, right? Because the current system is not sustainable, right? We have to look at a regenerative framework, right? That's actively healing all of these various components, right? Because if something is like, how you gonna sustain your health and you still shooting up heroin? Ain't no sustainable approach to that. You know what I'm saying? And we're continuously
True indeed.
dumping these toxins everywhere. So we have to go. It's time for us to transition beyond sustainability and start thinking about regeneration, right? And this is a very, very growing in popularity in agricultural circles, where we're talking about agriculture that's not just sustainable, but agriculture that actually heals that land through regenerative practices, right? Trying to get back to a point before, these colonial practices were just extracting the life from the soil. That's the only thing I wanted to interject, African.
I appreciate that too, because we got to frame what we're doing to where the problem is. Again, like you said, if it's toxic, then we got to work into here, not just to sustain what's going on. We got to heal, and then we can look at sustaining that in a healed space. But yeah, regeneration. I definitely appreciate that.
Free the land. Can I add something?
Go ahead, Mama.
I think it. Hold on. I'm thinking. I went out of the program. Hold on, just a minute. Okay, there we are. I'm also thinking, along with what Brother Alton says, is that there has to be transformation. And when we talk about transformation, we've been here a long time now. Is the system working for you? Are you a citizen? Are we all citizens here? That paper nonsense that they put 13, 14, 15 Amendment? Have you been given equal rights, the human rights that we deserve? Transformation is taking all the tools that we have within us and having a connection with what we call God, because God is in everything. It's in the earth, the wind, the air, the agriculture, the plants, and we know how to speak to each and every one of them. As an indigenous being, as an African being, as the first being, our issues are healing the heart and making sure that we embed in us the highest forms of ma'at and all the good things that we're supposed to living that life, because that's the only way we can elevate. We're trying to be beings of light, because I'm telling you, darkness is upon the earth. So it is incumbent upon us to become beings of light and to have all the things that we need at our existence, which means all the seraphim and the archangels and the ancestors and whomever you decide to pray on, to bring the wrath of God down on all levels. So as we are melanated and internal beings, we got to think about, okay, so what is it that's happening that's blocking our melanin, that's keeping us stifled? We got to do everything possible to make sure that we elevate and that we are sincere beings. And as we said, it comes back to self. I got issues, y'all. All of us have issues. We got to be able to humble down and be able to say, hey, why can't we work with this person? Why can't we, why is it that everything that falls apart that we put together with these creative ideas, what is it that's keeping us from manifesting all of the beautiful things that we want for our world and our children? Because it's about the children. What do we want? We, right now, reparations are due. You are to, one of our demands is that set up the centers like you did them white folks from Europe, the so-called Ashkenazi Jews, and do the healing. You put billions and billions into 7 years, maybe it was 9, into man's humanity against man, folks that look like you. What about those that don't look like you? We deserve reparations, and some of that comes with you help us build the healing centers, the birthing centers, the house of sanctuaries, because our people need them, because we have the healers. The healers are here, but they locked in because they can't make no money unless they're counselors, social workers, et cetera, et cetera. We need them in the community, funded and helping us heal, our children heal, our men heal, families healing, because that's the attack. The attack is on the family, on the Black man, of course, the Black woman, and it is unhealthy for us to see toxic relationships that don't show divine love. Because you when you walk with a couple and you see divine love, that's the unusual. That's not the normal. And what has been imposed on us through all the practices, from the mating, the dating, and beyond, has not been divine love. That ain't been divine love. What is that? That's demonology. That's the unhealthiest of the unhealthy, because they experimented on us. They treated us. They did every dirty thing that they could think of to us, to I and I. Every dirty thing and beyond. Some things we will never know. We will never, ever, ever know. And they turn around and say that's normal. You better know who we are. You better know who we are, Black man and woman, and who these people are. They don't get grace. They've had 500 years to prove their humanity, and their time is up. So our task is to transform ourselves from under the yoke and to heal as righteously as we can. And through that healing, we're going to unite, find confederacies, federations, and it's going to be a multitude of beautiful children. Because right now, our children, hey, this conversation is mute when we look at the children that are coming out of public school that has said, don't teach them. That's forbidden. So what we finna do? What we finna do? What we finna do? Where's the vocational training, the STEM experts, the airplane, all of that we have? We have experts that look like us, but they're working for somebody else and not for themselves, for us. And our children, the ruin of a nation begins in the homes of its people. So there's a whole heap of healing to do, a whole heap. And we got to demand, you gonna give us our programs that we need. We have people walking the streets every day that have mental health issues that may be able to just do a little counseling, get them back on track. They can become productive again. And we're being denied those simple human rights. Simple. And what we got money to do that? To set up these centers? That do we have the professionals, because we have many professionals who's willing to donate their time like back in the day? That's rare. And that's why we have to forge forward, keep speaking love, because right now, if we don't transform, we're looking at war tactics against us. Because soon, and I'm going to mention it because everybody needs to mention it, us Black folk finna be drafted into the war. And we need to make a decision. You want your sons and daughters?
Right.
Do we want our sons and daughters? What is each and every organization and nation saying? We need our reparations. You talk about sending us over there to be on the front line like they did in Nam and other places because you want to empty your jails and just put folks out there to shield your own, who are going to be the lieutenants and the captains, and we going to be the private first class 1 and 2 because we've been in jail. We ain't going to have those high positions. So we're going to be on the front line. So what we finna do? What are we finna do? I yield.
So I'm glad you brought up the point as it relates to the youth.
Yeah.
You know, it just made me think about this question of, you know, how do we as a community make agriculture, make herbalism, make holistic living more attractive to our people, the next generation, more so than, you know, what's being marketed to them every day.
I got a quick and simple and easy solution for that. You pay them.
Exactly.
You got to be able to pay them.
Yes, indeed.
A lot of people have this idea that, you know, our young folks are lazy. Now, young folks don't want to work. No, what's happening, and this is going to get worse and worse and worse. These young people are not going to work without dignity, right? They're not gonna do minimum wage. What I'm gonna do minimum wage for when I can go hit you in your head and live good for a couple of months, and then all I gotta do is rinse and repeat the process, right? And I'm living good on Instagram. What I'm gonna go work in Checkers or Burger King for? You know what I'm saying? Especially when these corporations are not given a real career path, right? And we don't have a whole lot of time to figure this out, right? Mama Ayo's talking about a war. I'm more concerned about the sophistication of these large language models. I'm concerned about the speed at which we're seeing human level dexterity in these robots that they're about to mass produce, right? Because you got systems now, man. If you got systems now that can replace a brain surgeon, oh man, your job is done. if the brain surgeons are being replaced, your job is done. So we're going to have to get super centered. Going back to what you brought up earlier, we got to bring this all the way back to agriculture, right? Because if we don't have control of land, and if we don't have control of our food production systems, you're not going to have anything, right? You're going to be locked into a system where, I don't know, they'll probably end up doing some UBI, but you don't want to take that. Like we've already had decades of experience with welfare. We don't want to do that. So we're going to have to figure out how to pool resources in order to create real farm enterprises, right? We have to graduate to a professional scale, right? I'm not going to say industrial scale because I'm not big on industrial agriculture, but we're going to have to learn how to put together multi-acre farm enterprises that are, again, rooted in regenerative practices that are able to feed people. And we're going to have to compete with Kroger. You got to. You're going to have to. You got to. You're going to have to compete with Walmart, right? You're going to have to figure out some kind of way to get a certain amount of money from these grocery bills that everybody got, and we're going to have to figure out how to redirect that into an agricultural economy, right? We're going to have to figure that out, right? And the systems are out there, and I think that if you give young folks a job, especially a job with the potential for them to graduate from an employee or an apprentice to graduate it into where they have their own couple little acres and they can work with they comrades and they can be out there on the farm working, laughing. And I think that that's also, again, going back to what Mama Ayo said, get this land, have a farm enterprise. Now you can start to look at the zoning of that land and start working with the county, get some housing built on that land, right? So now these farms become de facto villages, right? And there's precedent for this. Look at the intentional community phenomenon, right? Look at Dancing Rabbit. Look at the farm in I think they're in Tennessee. All of these various little intentional communities and the spectrum of methodologies, because some intentional communities, they're basically just a subdivision that people decided to live in proximity to each other. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you got intentional communities where it's a whole shared economy. Everybody's putting their money into a single pot. So it's more like a commune. So all of these systems are out there and available. You know what I'm saying? We're just going to have to figure out how do we implement it at scale. You know, one of the reasons I decided to come over here to Jackson instead of going back to Atlanta, this land over here is stupid cheap. It's stupid cheap. And it provides us an opportunity to start getting land at scale and start doing production. Okay. Agricultural production. There's nothing wrong with gardens, right? There's nothing wrong with community gardens, but we have to learn how to farm at a production level, and we can't do it like this factory farming. We have to develop systems where we are integrated with consumer demand, right? Like Obafemi, if you have 100 people, let's say let's talk about your the operation you got right now. If you got 100 people, right, and those 100 people is willing to pay you, let's just say starting off $10 a week in order to get a basket of a small basket, a milk crate of, I don't know, whatever's easy for y'all to produce on a consistent basis. Some greens, some lettuce, maybe lettuce in the springtime and summer, maybe some greens toward the fall. That 100 people producing that $10 a week, that's a consistent income that now you can start planning around. You understand what I'm saying? Everybody is shifting to a subscription model, right? And we have to figure out how to leverage technology to take advantage of subscription models. So now, instead of being at the mercy of a market, right, we have a community, we have a tribe, right? Instead of just random customers. We have, and again, there's nothing new about this. This is we're basically talking about community supported agriculture, right? We're just talking about applying it to our specific benefit, right? But you do the math, you start having 100 people, 500 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people paying a consistent amount of money for a consistent product, right? That's been systematized. Now you have the means to start employing young people. Now you have now you got revenue, right, in the bank that you can then take out a loan against to build some housing on that land, right? And be able to rent those properties at a low enough cost where you're just covering the mortgage. You're not worrying about profit. You just want to cover the mortgage. You want to cover the property taxes. You want to cover the insurance, right? You don't need a profit. There's no law that says you have to make a profit, right? That's a personal decision. That's a business decision, right? And even if you decide to take that profit and then fold it back into the enterprise, that's the prerogative of that particular corporate entity, right? But if you're talking about a rental property, something that you own, something that's going to appreciate, right? Once it's built, now you can take out a home ownership, a home equity line of credit, right, on that property and leverage that into, I don't know, maybe another construction. Maybe the business needs a line. Maybe the business needs a loan in order to expand an operation, right? To turn another 2 or 3 acres into a market garden. So now you can either offer an additional service, an additional product, right, on top of that initial $10, right? Or maybe you just want to expand what you're doing with the $10 and bring in more subscribers, right? So yeah, you get people involved in agriculture by being able to pay them and being able to solve the actual social contradictions that they're dealing with in their day-to-day life. It's simple. It's not a mystery. We just got to learn what the fundamentals are. How do we do that on a consistent basis? Check.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate your response, because you went more into the how. Like I said, it's a simple concept, and people, our community, our people have to see like this is a viable way for us to live, because that's what I tell people all the time. I said, listen, you are already involved in agriculture. We just on the consumer side. You know what I'm saying? So we all involved in it already. We got to get more so on the production side, though. So how do we do that? And I think one of the things that y'all said earlier was we have get into the younger folks is easier than to get into the older folks because of that epigenetic trauma. You know what I'm saying? There's some trauma, there's some blockages in some of the, the older folks that I ain't finna pick up no garden hoe. I ain't finna sweat. I ain't touching no shovel. You know what I'm saying? They is totally against that. So is if we get the younger people involved earlier, the better off we are. You know, so
And
Free the
Uncle
land.
Femi, can I just? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Bob, is it possible I can ask a question?
yeah,
Or
go ahead.
I really wanted to ask this question to you, to both our panel. Um, while we wait for large scale policy changes, what are the self determined actions a neighborhood can take tomorrow to mitigate environmental racism?
Free the land. Uh, I would say if you're going to do that, you need a dedicated group of people that is going to do the work. And it's not going to be how we call these town hall meetings. Everybody's all riled up. People put their name, and then you start calling them, and they're not around. These are the types of things that have to happen because you have to put pressure on your council people. You have to show the community that you're serious. I still believe in the old school. You have to have personal conversations. Facebook and all of that is fine if you want to inform, but to have those conversations about, your community, you pay taxes. This is what is happening with the children in the school. We have some aggressors in the community, and we need to talk to them about, these houses aren't good. We need to talk to what we call our organizations and have some courageous conversations. Is you for the revolution? Or is you against it? And when we talk about revolution, they know exactly what we're talking about. Is you trying, we're trying to build a community. We're not trying to be a part of capitalism, imperialism. There's a way that our economic system inherently is set up. If you've ever lived in Africa, you don't have huge department stores or conglomerates sending out tomatoes here and there. There are a few that do export, no problem. I mean, the society is built, but everybody's community and hood have 4, 5, 6, 7 stores, and everybody's got their store in their house, and everybody, depending on your community around you, is coming to that store to buy the basics. And money is exchanged. The marketing. Where are you getting some of these things? The women are going to go to the market. The women are going to bring certain products. You don't have to go into town to do any of that because it's right there in your community. So when we talk about how our economics are going to look, yes, the community farms are just as important as the big farms, because the issue is, can we get a community of people who's finna come on the land, work together on the land, prosper on the land, raise your children, marry, do whatever is necessary, and hold each other accountable? I'm saying that some of those experiments, because that's what it is at this particular point, don't work because you have issues, y'all. Issues, and we got to have ways to have community meetings, frustrations. We travel sometimes to see our brothers behind the walls, and we stopped at this one gas station. I believe it's is it the Mormons or the Amish? When you talk about, they got every dessert. Not that I'm pushing the desserts because they still use the butter and all of that. They're not vegan and plant-based. But when I say they have every cake, every pudding, every candy, and it's being sold out of the gas station. So you know that these women are invested in production. And that's what Marcus Garvey tells us. Of course, we have to have some type of factories. We still have to have mom and pop stores in a society that's going to reflect many things. We can be as simple as we want to be, and we can be as complex. If your vision is, I want to supply food, and it's going to supply three communities, I hope you have the workers, because some of our elder farmers are tired. They've raised their children, they sent them to school, and they're not coming back, and they get tired. A new group of agriculturalists must come onto the land. They must work together. They must love on each other, and they have to face every. But we don't think like that because some people have all this land and they're just out as a couple. They don't think community, cooperative, self-determination. This is what we're going to do. This is how much it's going to take. We help each other build each other's houses. We have a space for our children to learn. We have a production center because you're going to be in the fields every day. You're going to be in them. So it's a lot. And we have to redevelop the love of agriculture. That's why we keep saying, hey, we need all of the children that are going through Tuskegee's agricultural program and others. We need them back on the land to give us strategies, new ways of growing. What is it that New Africa needs to be growing for itself? Black people's food and beyond. Mushrooms, trees, fruit trees, walnuts, the greens. These are our fruits. These are our vegetables now. And how does that look? Because we still need farmers markets to come through. They need to be on the back of trucks, need to be bringing them watermelons, need to be bringing the squash when there's an overabundance. So it's a real intricate system we're talking about. And we have to have brothers who want to come together in the trucking business, get those refrigerated trucks that was invented by a Black man, and have our systems. We don't have to cover all 50 states. Tri-state is good. Tri-state is good. 2 states are good. Because I'm talking about labor. Farming is labor, intense labor, but it's so worth it. And not everybody wants to do that kind of labor, y'all. So we just got to find who it is that wants to be there, willing to live simply, because not all women are going to be happy living a quiet life when they're used to going to the club and blah, 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 blah. Huh? All of those things have to be taken into consideration because they're true. Some people don't want to be in the quiet and they love to hear the birds and everything that comes with it. That ain't the life we talking about, because part of our epigenetic trauma is you will hear the elders say that they were in farms. They had 10 sisters and brothers, 7 sisters and brothers, and they worked that land. They were sharecroppers. They had to go pick that cotton, and they don't want any part of that life. They will not tell it to their children. They will not show them because they're perfectly capable of having their own gardens. They don't do it. It's only a few. So these are the traumatic issues, and we have to, as the brother said, we got to start with our youth. We got to build within them a love, because some of them don't know that they have gifts for the land, that they put their energy into the land, and the land is going to bless them and keep them safe and whole and healthy. That relationship with the earth, with Mother Earth, serious. So with that, I yield.
So the question was, what could 10 people in a neighborhood do to begin to I'm sorry, repeat the question.
The question is, while we wait for large-scale policy changes, what are the self-determined actions a neighborhood can take tomorrow to mitigate environmental racism?
It's a multifaceted question, right? Like, first and foremost, I would say number one, forget about policy, especially at the federal level. Forget about that. Put that out your head. Put it out your head. Forget about it. You might be able to make something happen at a coordinated level, at the state level, county level, municipal level, but the best thing to focus on is that neighborhood level. That's number one. Forget about anything higher than the people who are willing to come, your neighbors, right? At a minimum in your city. That's number one. Number two, decide on a decision-making framework. decide on a decision-making framework. How are you going to make decisions? How are you going to deliberate? How are you going to receive proposals? How are you going to decide on what proposals to move forward with? How are you going to structure and organize yourselves? Are you going to use Robert Rules of Order? Are you going to use consensus, like the Quakers do? Or are you going to use something that's a little bit robust, like maybe sociocracy, or what they call consent based decision making, right? That's number two. Because if you don't have, because I've seen this over the past 20, 25 years at this point, folks don't have a decision making framework. So therefore they what? They can't make decisions, right? So that's the two most important things right there. Understand that the only real change you have control of is the people that you can really go out and meet and see, right? And who have the same level of commitment as you. Two, decide on your decision-making methodology, right? Now you have the framework to really figure out, well, what is the most important thing that you want to do, right? And it's a range. It might be as simple as, hey, we want to control some of our food system. We want to control some of the food that our family consumes, right? So it might be as simple as, I don't know, doing an assessment. How much yard altogether do they have? Can they begin to grow with a combined garden consisting of all their yards, consisting of, I don't know, containers on balconies if they in apartments and can get some good sun. And really the sun in an apartment, the sun don't matter. You can set up you could buy a little LED kit to give the plants their light or whatnot. Right. So it might be, hey, is there a lot beside us that we can convert to a garden in the community? Is there a city park where now that's some policy you might be able to implement fairly quickly, going to the city council and getting a resolution to turn a local park or a piece of vacant land into a component of a food system that y'all are eventually going to expand to other sites around town and bring in more and more neighbors. It might be coming together and saying, hey, we need to look at purchasing some land. We need to find one of these farmers that's tied and figure out how we can get that land off of him, or even just sign a lease with him, right? And it might be let's see if we can get, again, going back to the example I gave Obafemi, let's see if we can pool 100 people that are willing to spend $10 to $25 a week. And maybe we can either go to an existing farmer, or maybe we could say, well, hey, we don't have access to a farm. We might have to do that for a year and use that as a down payment for a piece of land, right? And while they're waiting for that down payment to accrue, they're learning the skills they need to learn, or forming the relationship with the necessary programs in the city so that they can begin to farm that land with apprentices, with young farmers that need access to land. And then who knows, maybe it might be a situation where it's like the folks in Africa Town, down there in Mobile, where over time a whole industry has been built around their community, turning them into a cancer alley. Something like that. You might have to say, hey, long-term survival, you might have to relocate, right? So it might be coming together and planning and organizing, how do we effectively relocate Africa Town to another part of the city, right? And I don't know, maybe find 10, 20 acres, right? And rebuild, you know what I'm saying, your community in another location, right? It might mean going a step further and saying, hey, we need to organize a dedicated fund. Need to organize a fund, and we're going to buy some acreage, and we're going to set up a farm enterprise, and we're going to build a whole new community, right? because if you know how to frame that, and you know how to underwrite that, and you're building up a list of private money lenders and hard money lenders and investors, that's absolutely possible, right? Absolutely, it's absolutely possible. You know, um, there was something else I wanted to say, and it came in my head, and it slipped out my head very, very quickly. But there's a lot of things you can do at that neighborhood level, right? But the number one thing is, one, don't expect no help from nothing you can't control, right? Anything outside that neighborhood decision making, don't expect nothing to happen. I don't care who gets in office. I don't even care if they even have elections. Because I'm gonna be honest with y'all, federal elections honestly might not be happening if we want to be honest about the legitimacy crisis that's happening in this country right now. But that being said, number two, focus on a decision making framework, how you're going to come together, how you're going to structure the work. And then three, start going through an assessment of saying, hey, what is it that we need? You know, some people might just need to say, well, hey, Obafemi, y'all grow food. How about we pool our money together and we pay you a certain amount every week on a regular basis to give us, right, food, right? And over a period of time, he can expand, right? They can expand from, maybe, I don't know y'all specific situation over FEMA, but let's just say hypothetically, y'all renting that land from the city, right? But after y'all engage with each other at that neighborhood level for a certain period of time, now you're in an economic position where you can go out and get a larger chunk of land, right? Replicate that enterprise, and now use the rest of the land to do to implement other enterprises, right? So there's a lot of things you can do, but I think number one comes down to, there's not going to be any help other than the folks that you can get committed in your local community, number one. And number two, you got to have that decision making framework, because if you're not able to sit down and actually have discussions with an agenda, with roles, with record keeping, right? It's not going to go anywhere. And governance, okay, that word, not government, governance, the process of governing. That's the number. I feel like that's one of the principal killers we have right now in the movement, because people don't understand how to function collectively as a single organism, as an organization. Now, I'm going to leave that at that.
Ashe, Ashe.
Thank you, Baba, for that answer. Thank you, Mama, as well. Um, as we about to come to a close, I have one more question to ask. Um, if we are on one accord despite ideological differences, what is one non-negotiable or environmental standard we must agree to protect? This will be the final question.
Can you repeat it again?
Sure, Mama. If we are on one accord despite ideological differences, what is the one non-negotiable or environmental standard we must agree to protect?
That's the land. The land has to be protected. The people and the water, our air quality. I mean, I'm saying multiple things, but I'm also saying that with the land comes the water, because the water is flowing underneath and on top of the land. The air quality, it's all related. So, I mean, we cannot negotiate on our environmental, because we could be in our beds and all of a sudden we're suffocating. We have to get up and go to the hospital because something has changed in the air. And the elders and our children, they're going to be affected first if we don't have any health problems. So With that, I would ask Brother Alton to go ahead and weigh in. I yield.
My answer would closely align with Mama Ayo's. Um, I think sovereignty is going to have to be uh, the non-negotiable aspect of it. You got to have total and absolute control of your environment, and I think that when you frame it like that, right, then that's going to determine the course of your actions, right, and that's going to give you guidelines of what you need to do. That because that tells you from the get-go that, okay, a leasing situation is unsustainable. We need to own this. We need to control this. We need to make sure that the revenue flows are sufficient to take care of the taxes. And then if we go above and beyond that, well, honestly, we talk about policy. Well, we need to control the policy mechanisms. We need to control the neighborhood planning organization. And then if you do that, well, we we need to take it up a level. We need to control the city. Yeah, that's how we're going to get the policies that we want. And then we understand that the city is subordinate to the county. Well, we need to control this county. We need to have our people in as many of these county commissioner positions as possible. We need to control the sheriff's department. We need to control the coroner's office, and that's just how it is, because that's what sovereignty is. That's how you can ensure at a fundamental level, right, you're actually in control. And then from there you might make the decision, well, we need to control the surrounding counties, right? We have the populations there, we have the political affinities there, we're there in significant numbers, we have, quote unquote white allies who are willing to vote with us. Yeah, well, we need to control that too. And eventually, when sovereignty is your imperative, well, eventually you find yourself at that gubernatorial level. You find yourself at that governor's mansion, where now we can go back to the earlier question of, well, now you don't have to wait for policy. Now you're in the policy making position, right? So I think sovereignty has to be the main thing. Sovereignty and as Obafumi said, production, right? Because when you control those things in this system, right? And I mean, even just production, we don't have to take it to like this meta political abstraction with sovereignty. When you control economic production and you have consistent revenue coming in, and you have relationship with these bankers, and you're able to buy these memberships into these clubs where policy is being discussed, right? When you're able to make contributions to politicians who are running for office, right? When you're able to position yourself where people in your orbit are applying for these positions, right? Who are going to be executing policy at the planning department, at zoning, whatever. Now the political abstraction becomes actual real world control, and it's nothing more than a political machine. That's all it is. There's no need to, we don't have to get fancy with it or whatnot. Check.
Madasi Baba, thank you for that. Baba Obafemi.
Man, I'm just kind of taking it all in, man. Definitely appreciate this conversation. I think it's, I mean, we could have expanded this, even much more and go more in depth with this. But it's a conversation that's necessary and needed. We are hosting one of these a month, and just working to show people those connections between um, our sense of self, our self-worth and value, our mental health, our physical, spiritual health, our daily sustenance, how we organize ourselves as a community, um, and how do we solve the problems that we face. And I look at a lot of that, and it always ties you back to the land. You know what I'm saying? Our relationship with ourselves and our relationship to the land. The answers lie in those relationships. Um, so yeah, we'll continue to grow and expound on this. I want to thank our guests today for taking their time out to share their thoughts, their knowledge with us, and hopefully those who tuned in got something that you can use on your journey. Again, this will be on YouTube, so y'all can go and check the playback if you did not catch it live. So we'll be back again the last Friday in the month of May with another show from Team RBG. Thank you, Mama Ayo. Thank you, Brother Atten, for your time. And we signing out, y'all. Go ahead, Bob.
Definitely.
Thank you for the invite. Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Pleasure, Brother Atten. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful.
Brother.
Asante Saul, and if I could do a quick plug right quick, we're developing the Community Wealth Operations Institute to serve as an educational component where we can begin to expose folks of like mind with some of these economic principles and practices that have been frankly gatekept away from us, from what the upper income folks are doing or whatnot. So I dropped the link in the chat or whatnot. Check it out and like the page, because we're gonna be offering some cohort based education, because I'm gonna be real frank with y'all. I haven't thought about real estate since like right before the crash. I was about to get into it, and recently I've been blessed to participate in a real estate developer academy put on by the city, and with some of the other educational things we've invested in to be in certain rooms. I feel like it's at a point where I would be negligent in derelict of duty if I didn't do what's necessary to try to expose others to some of this to some of this education, some of these methodologies that these folks are using. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm in some of these rooms and I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed. You understand what I'm saying? So we need to be in there, and we need to understand, how capital actually functions in this country, and we need to be able to operate according to our values as a people and as a culture here. And that's all I'm going to say about it. Appreciate it, y'all. Santi Sana.
Appreciate you as well. Appreciate you, Mama Ayo, Baba Aten. We appreciate you all for coming on. Don't forget that this is a part of Team RBG's Black State of Emergency campaign to keep up and to keep abreast with everything that is going on with our Black State of Emergency campaign. You can go to teamrbg.com, the official website of Team RBG. And if you would like to get in touch with us or in contact with Team RBG, learn more, or want to help us in this work of liberation and sovereignty for African people, you can contact us by teamredblackgreen@gmail.com. Once again, that is teamredblackgreen@gmail.com. Any final words, Baba? Baba Obafemi?
That's all I got. That's all I got, y'all.
All right,
All
y'all.
right.
Free the land. Free the land.
All right now. Free the land.
Free the people.
All right. Free the people. Raise first.
Raise
BB48.
Ashe.
All right now.
Ashe.